Welcome back to Morning Joe, 6:40 a.m. here on the East Coast. We hit some of the morning's other headlines now, and Manhattan's district attorney is urging the judge in Donald Trump's hush money case to reject the former president's bid to toss out his conviction on immunity grounds. DA Alvin Bragg argued in a filing made public yesterday that the Supreme Court's recent decision on Trump's immunity for official acts while president has no bearing on his conviction on charges of falsifying business records in New York. Bragg contends that the charges exclusively stem from conduct for which Trump is not immune. The former president's attorneys have argued the Supreme Court's presidential immunity ruling should lead to the case being tossed entirely. Joining us now to help us sort it out, former litigator and MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin. Lisa, good to see you again. So let's talk about this case. Do you think the Trump team's arguments have any merit? Because it is striking, I think, to most people watching this saying, well, wait a minute. This all happened. This is about conduct that happened before he was president.
Yeah, and it's important to sort of take a step back and remind people that the Supreme Court's immunity ruling isn't just about immunity from liability. It's also about immunity from the use of evidence. And that's what this fight is really about. It's not them saying, hey, he should be immune from prosecution for things that he did largely in 2015, 2016, and then privately. It's more that they say that there's a bunch of different pieces of evidence used at the trial that stem from the period of time during which he was president and even relate to his official acts as president that should have been excluded and without which the jury could not have come to the verdict that they reached.
So this would seem to put into question, whatever the next steps are, the sentencing date, which is mid-September, I believe. How confident are you that that will happen when it's scheduled?
Well, I think, first of all, the judge has to make a determination about whether or not there's going to be a sentencing. But what's really important here, and I think this plays into the political calendar here, too, is that the judge has already committed that he's going to make a decision about whether to set aside the verdict by September 6th. So when you hear the Trump campaign sort of backing away from the anytime, any place we'll debate Joe Biden, which should have applied to Kamala Harris as well, note that part of that may be contingent on what's going to happen on September 6th. If this conviction is upheld, as many people suspect, you can understand why Trump would be very eager to avoid a debate with the person we are all referring to now as the person who's prosecuting the case, the biggest case against Donald Trump, if he is still going to be a man convicted of 34 felony counts here in New York.
Sam Stein, the legal and the political completely intertwined.
Yeah, it's wild. We could end in September with a presidential campaign coming to a crescendo, a potential debate, and one of the candidates facing a sentencing in his criminal trial. Lisa, I just want to go back to what Jonathan said. The sentencing itself, what is the likelihood that we do end up seeing some sort of action prior to the election? And I know you're in the legal punditry, not the political punditry, but I'm sort of curious for your take. How would you imagine the Trump people are approaching this on a psychological level? The Bragg indictment and conviction did help them, but that was in the context of a primary campaign. This would be in the context of a general election coming to a close.
I agree with you. You know, again, my larger frame is always legal and not political. But as you noted, the legal and the political have all but collapsed into one here. And I do think that they are eager to avoid a sentencing because a New York State sentencing is something that a future President Trump can't wish away. He can't dismiss. There's no Department of Justice policy or executive power that could rescue him from this case. And I do believe that the New York DA here will ultimately have the better of the argument because even if all the evidence that the Trump folks say should be excluded is excluded, they make a great argument in the middle of their brief about all the other evidence that supports each and every element of the falsification of business records counts that were sustained against Donald Trump. That means we are likely barreling toward a September 18th sentencing. That's a firm date. We'll see if they can somehow persuade Judge Merchan to change that. But if, as I suspect, on September 6th, he comes back and says, I'm going to keep this conviction, then September 18th is the date for sentencing, Sam, and there's nothing that a former or a future president could do about that.
Well, we will be watching carefully as that date approaches. MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin. Lisa, thank you for being with us this morning.